Hey guys, Fru here. Today we have a fun hike. There is snow everywhere. This is a typical Minnesota. So I'm gonna give some commentary as we go along. The last commentary video I did, I think you guys liked it. So we're gonna do more of that. It's a little bit cold, and if my hands get too cold, I might have to cut this a little bit short. So our goal is to walk around, explore Minneapolis, talk about the history, talk about some fun facts, and hopefully you're gonna learn a thing or two about this beautiful city called Minneapolis. Our goal today would be to get across the Stone Ash Bridge, highlight some landmarks you're gonna see, and hopefully learn a thing or two. And let's get started. So right here is the Mill Ruin Park. We're gonna go down and then come back before going across the bridge. So the Mill Ruin Park, what about that? Before we talk about this, where I am standing or where I'm walking, they say this is the birthplace of Minneapolis. Minneapolis essentially developed around this city. So to my right, as you can see, and I'll talk about the buildings you see, this is the city of Minneapolis itself. And to my left, to my right this way, I think I just turned my angles here. Across the river is the Mississippi, and that would be St. Anthony Falls. Now, at one point, St. Anthony Falls and the city of Minneapolis were completely different cities. There were two incorporated cities that were different. So that's my understanding. And if I'm wrong, I think somebody's gonna correct me in the comment section. Now, at one point, they used to be different cities. Eventually, they merged to become one city. So I think the city of Minneapolis annexed the city of St. Anthony Falls, and it's all one city now. So back in the day, there is Father Hennepin, and I'll talk a little bit more about Father Hennepin. He was one of the first people that came up here and did a lot of exploration, and essentially Minneapolis is part of the Hennepin County, and that's the name of Father Hennepin, who discovered, or I shouldn't say discovered, who was one of the very first Europeans to come up here. Now, to my right, and you're gonna see when I get to my left, and you're gonna see me talk about left and right interchangeably here, just because I'm zigzagging. I'm going through kind of switchbacks here and there. So this is a beautiful Stone Ash Bridge. Most people see it from the top. There's a tremendous amount of history here, but I wanted to come below so you can also see how beautiful it is from a different perspective. I always love showing things from a different perspective. Now, this bridge was built by James G. Hill. You can see it up there. James G. Hill was one of the barons at the time in the Gilded Era, one of the richest people. He was mostly based in St. Paul. He built the Empire Railway that goes all the way to Washington, and this was one of them. This came here to the Union Depot over there, a little bit in Minneapolis, and then obviously having a railway here to get the corn and the meal to the east, to the west, was a big history of Minneapolis. So this is a Stone Ash Bridge from a different angle for those of you who haven't seen it. I'll make sure to go at the top and also have a view of the Stone Ash Bridge from the top. And this has been here for a long time. Now, railways used to go across the bridge, but they don't do that anymore, obviously. So it's more of a pedestrian, iconic part of the Minneapolis landscape, this bridge. Now, Why is this area? Why was this area such a unique location where the city of Minneapolis was founded? And here is my commentary, and I'm going to go off a tangent here a little bit. My submission is that Duluth, for those of you who know Minneapolis and the Minnesota area, you will know of Superior, Lake Superior and Duluth. Technically, if you look at the big cities that are in the Midwest, like Chicago, if you go to Cleveland in Ohio, and some of the other cities, they have access to the Great Lakes because obviously the biggest freshwater body, ships can come in and out. Transportation from that perspective is so easy. So I always thought Duluth should be the area that developed. If I was like a settler moving to Minnesota, I would have picked Duluth first before Minneapolis. But Minneapolis has something going for it, which is the Mississippi River. So the Mississippi River goes through Minneapolis, and let me show this view so you guys can see the skyline. I'm really trying to make sure we see the skyline as well. So the Mississippi River going through this area now, which we call Minneapolis, really gave it something that was unique at the time, which was obviously ships going down the Mississippi River. So if you go from Lake Itasca or from Itasca, where the headways of the Mississippi, it's pretty straight. The very first rapids you run into is right here. Is this location, St. Anthony Falls. So that's where the name St. Anthony Falls comes from. That's the very first rapid. And then from there, I think it's very, very straight all the way to the Gulf Coast in Louisiana. And what that meant was, wow, this is pretty interesting. It's a good view of this. So what that meant was you had accessible, navigable river in the Mississippi that stopped at this specific location where there is a waterfall to give you power. And power in the Midwest of Minnesota, a region that has abundant fields, meant you could grow a lot of grain in this area. So the immigrants who came, the Dutch, a lot of Germans, I think there's a big German presence here, Scandinavian, a lot of those immigrants were farmers. So they farmed the fields, generated a lot of grain, grew a lot of grain, and having this source of power right here meant you can mill that. You can harness that from a windmill. Even the folks that came from Holland, I think there's a lot of windmills in Holland, so they're used to that. But here you have this hydroelectric power from the fall, St. Anthony Falls, meant those grains could be processed and then quickly shipped over. So Minneapolis essentially became a powerhouse. Now look at all of this. You would never, most people who come don't get to see this view. So hopefully I'm showing you guys something pretty unique. So all of this was mills. This was mills and mills and mills. Now this is called the Mill Ruin Park, and the thing is, it was a big explosion here, so a lot of this got damaged. But just to tell you that at one point in the early 1900s, this would have been a bustling area of people coming in and working and producing tons and tons and tons of mills to go power essentially the Gilded Age. And right after the First World War, and before that the Great Depression, this would have been the breadbasket of America. This the Midwest essentially, and Minneapolis was on the map with that. And not to talk about having just the power to mill the grains here and be able to ship them down the Mississippi all the way across the country. You had the train track here with James G. Hill and some of the barons that could take the grains from here and go all the way to Washington, all the way to New York, all the way to the East Coast. This really put Minneapolis on the map. So you cannot have a history of Minneapolis without grain, without meal. And that's why Minneapolis is called the Mill City. So over there, oh, the light just went off. Okay, you can see it. The gold flower. I think they still sell gold flower, gold medal flower. That is the ruins of it. This is a lot of where that was all happening here. Now, there was an explosion. If you see just right beside this here, I don't know if my my camera captures it. You can see again another ruin. There was a big explosion there, where as you do milling, obviously it comes up with these fine particles of dust. And one of the biggest natural disasters in the US at the time, I believe about 16 people, or 6 or 16, and people died. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, was in the mills over there, where the dust gathers, and with a little bit of spark, you have this massive explosion, which was very, very catastrophic. Not a good outcome. So those are some of the ruins you see over there. But that led to many safety protocols that we put in from a worker's perspective to keep people safe. So that's some of the history of Minneapolis. You cannot separate the history of Minneapolis from this. So if you ever get a chance, visit Minneapolis, walk across the Stone Ash Bridge. But if you can, just take a bit of a detour, and you come down, you'll see a completely different view that most people don't get to see. So very fun. Now, and I think even in the winter time too, it gives a different perspective. Not a lot of crowd. Look at all of this way. Pillars of buildings that were once here, humming and grinding, taking power. And you can see on the opposite side there, so still have the power, some of the power generation stations. They would divert the water from the waterfall, essentially bring them here. Turbines are turning, generates, spins the wheels, and is grinding the corn and the barley and all the stuff that was grown here for shipment out to the other parts of the country. And naturally, when you have good grain, also you do a lot of beer. You make beer out of that, and so Minneapolis also became a big beer a brewery location. Not as much as Wisconsin. Obviously, Wisconsin has a tremendous amount of brewery going there on their own, but Minneapolis was holding its own too. There's some good beers here in Minneapolis. Hello. So you can see. I wish we did this during the day. You can see back. So just imagine there was a big city, a very big city over here, back in the day that is buried. Now, let's talk about the Stone Ash Bridge a little bit more. On my left, that's what you can see. The Stone Ash Bridge, I believe, was built in around 1883 by James G. Hill, and I've been to the James G. Hill mansion, one of the biggest mansions here in Minnesota. Maybe smaller than a Glensheen mansion in Duluth, but James G. Hill mansion is pretty big and remarkable. They call him the Empire Builder. Now, this was originally for railroad, so it was a railroad bridge. It wasn't just for pedestrians the way pedestrians are using it now. So it was for rail, the rail coming here to the Union Depot, carrying grain, carrying things from the east, bringing them, and then taking things from here, from the Midwest all the way back. Somewhere in between, I want to make you guys see that. You see Pillsbury, best flower. So here you have the gold medal flower across the river, and then you can see through the pier of the bridge there, this arch is a Pillsbury flower. So this was the flower capital of the world. Unbelievable. It's remarkable. And then to my right is the Mill City Museum. That museum is amazing. At some point, if you visit Minnesota, I would encourage going to visit the museum. I'll do a tour or a walk of that museum at some point here on the channel, but it has some good history. So over there you can see the ruins the collapsed building, that's essentially used to be a mill, and it collapsed, and the city was trying to figure out what to do with it. They decided to hold it up like that, keep the ruins, and then turn it into a museum. So a remarkable museum. And then to a little bit to the right, I believe that's the Guthrie Theater. It has the walkway that just hangs up in the air. Good history of Minnesota. And then to my way across there is the I-35W, the bridge that unfortunately in 2007, I believe, collapsed, which was very, very unfortunate. One of the biggest not natural disasters, but the biggest disasters in Minnesota history. So that's the new bridge that was built over there. Now, going back to the Stone Age Bridge, this was built in 1883, and it's still standing. Remarkable, still standing and still looking good, by James J. Hill. And this is the only, as far as there is, and again, if I'm wrong with any of my facts, correct me, but as far as there is, this is the only Stone Age Bridge that crosses the Mississippi. And we're gonna go close so you can see the bridge itself. This is the only Stone Age Bridge going across the Mississippi River, and this was constructed to be over 2,100 feet long. So if you go from that side to this side, it's about 2,100 feet. So not too long. It's a nice hiking place. People run there. People come here for first dates, for weddings. It's a good backdrop of the city of Minneapolis. And underneath this, I think there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, maybe 21 or 22 arches underneath that. Now this middle part doesn't have an arch, but there are about 28 arches underneath that. And this was constructed with granite limestone. So granite is a big limestone here in Minnesota, and really good for construction. I think it looks beautiful. The other place in Minnesota that uses granite limestone, just going off my memory, that I think also looks good is the University of St. Thomas. Has similar facade with granite limestone. So it's a beautiful architectural subject to use for construction. Now, let's talk about some of the companies that were here. Let me give you a good view back of Minneapolis. So that's the view behind me as we're going forward. We're gonna take a loop around here and then go across the bridge. So that's Minneapolis. Now let's talk about some of the folks. So I think I've shown you guys Pillsbury flour. Most people might know the Pillsbury flour. Pillsbury best flour, as a matter of fact, that's what it's called. I've shown you guys the gold medal flour. So that's the gold medal flour. And then you have Washburn. Washburn was also very big here. And by 1900, Minneapolis produced close to 15%, actually 14% of all the world's flour. The entire world, 14% of the flour that was produced in the world at the time, by the 1900s, was produced in this location. So that just tells you the impact this city had, not just in the US, but in the world. And remarkable to think about it. Just remarkable. And today, even the Pillsbury and the gold flour are still global brands with heritage here in the city of Minneapolis. Now, we're standing on the west side of the bank. You can see there are some tributaries here. The water has been harnessed and redirected in ways more for the power. But this is essentially the Mississippi River. And if you can hear, the waterfall is back there. I'll show you guys the waterfall once we get there. Let's be quiet so you can hear the waterfall, hopefully. Yep, so hopefully you can hear the waterfall back there. And I'll talk some stories about the waterfall, because you would expect like your typical waterfall, and you wouldn't see that. You'll see something a little bit different, and it's because of some engineering work that was done to stop the erosion of this location. My understanding is that the waterfall, if you look at the bridge right there, the waterfall just seems like it's nearby. At one point, it used to be all the way down that way. And waterfalls obviously erode and move backwards just over time, and thousands and millions of years, it moved all the way here. And if that work wasn't done, so the Army Corps of Engineers, I think they put a slab and they really constructed it to stop the erosion. So it doesn't look like your typical waterfall. That's the reason why. Because without that embankment and concrete and the work they've done there, the waterfall will keep moving. And in 100 or 200 years, it will be there wouldn't be a waterfall in Minnesota. In Minneapolis, there will be a waterfall maybe all the way up in like Anoka or someplace. But I think with the work they've done, the waterfall is going to stay there for a while. If you want to see a true waterfall when you visit Minnesota, St. Anthony Falls will not be what you want to go look at. I will recommend going over to Minnehaha. The Minnehaha Falls also gives you a good view, and that falls goes down, winds its way into the Minnesota River, that ties back into the Mississippi River. So that gives you a good waterfall, the way waterfalls will look, what you expect from a true waterfall. So this is Minnesota, a mixture of the impact of man and nature in this location. So like I said, if I was choosing just from pure beauty, I think Duluth has a lot going for it. There could have been a big port in Duluth. People could have developed that area, had the ships, make Duluth become like the Chicago of the Midwest. But Duluth did not have a waterfall like this. Duluth, maybe the water at the time was too choppy for ships to take the grain out, and so Minneapolis somehow got it. And Minneapolis also has not just the Mississippi that takes you almost across the entire state, so there is the benefit of that. It also ties into the Minnesota River, that also takes you all the way across the western part of the state. So there is even though I like Duluth, but I could see why Minneapolis edged over that from a development perspective. Really, really beautiful. Now we're gonna walk, so you can see this is part of the lock and dams. It's used to manage the water for overflows and things like that to stop that erosion. And across, you might not see it, that's the east side, St. Anthony, and then all the way through Columbia Heights there. There's still some ruins over there, so that tells you tremendous amount of history has been lost. I want to come close here to show you guys this limestone. It's well built. I think this is going nowhere. Some good ash construction. This is a staple of Minnesota. Most people who come out here, once I get to the bridge and walk, looking back, you're gonna see a good view of the Minnesota landscape by night, which is what I was hoping to capture in this hike today. And we're gonna see it. We're gonna see that view. So hopefully to my left you can see, let's see if we can see the Washburn ruins. So that's the ruins over there I mentioned, the Washburn ruins that exploded in 1878 May 2nd, and because of flower dust ignition, 18 workers were killed in that explosion, and it destroyed several buildings, several mills. And so what you see, there's a restoration of of that location at the time. So part of it is the restoration that is visible right now. And I really love doing this in the winter time because it gives you a different perspective. I'll also do a video in the summertime. It tends to be crowded and busy, obviously, but I think you guys deserve that. If you've subscribed, I think you deserve seeing it in the summertime too. Now, let's talk about how Minneapolis and St. Paul compare. There's always a contrast. You know, they call it the Twin Cities. Minneapolis is more of your mill city. And by the way, Minneapolis is not the capital of Minnesota. I think that should be obvious to everybody. St. Paul is. So St. Paul is the Twin Cities of Minneapolis. But the Mississippi connects them. So the Mississippi goes through Minneapolis and then eventually to St. Paul. James G. Hill was a St. Paul native. So he wasn't a Minneapolis native. His house is in St. Paul. He grew up there. He used to walk there literally from nothing, rags to riches. That's somebody whose story is also could be very inspiring. He walked literally from nothing, eventually worked his way up and built the empire he did. So good for him. Good for James G. Hill. And then St. Paul used to be called the Pig's Eye historically. I'm not sure why that name was given to St. Paul, but that was the name that was given to St. Paul. All right. Now what we're gonna do is, so hopefully you guys can see the gold flower, North Star blanket, and obviously Minnesota, it's snow everywhere. And this is the Mills Ruin Park. This is where we're exploring today. Now, I just want to also comment that this location, obviously, before all this work was done here, the Dakota and the Lakota, this was their ancestral home. A lot of that history I haven't learned, so that's something that is on my list. But my understanding is this was a sacred site, especially with the waterfall there called Owami, whirlpool, which as the waterfall fell, it created a whirlpool, and so that was the name that was given to that location, Owami. Now, I want you to take a guess. Write it in the comment section below. At the time, how much do you think it cost in dollars to have built? How much do you think it cost in dollars to have built this Stone Ash Bridge? So right now we're going over the Stone Ash Bridge. In dollars, take a guess. 10 million? 5,000? 500,000? 1 billion? At the time, the dollars at the time. So that's the question I'm asking. How much do you think it cost to build this Stone Ash Bridge? So, according to the records, it was about 650,000 US dollars. 650,000 US dollars. So cheaper than most houses today. Houses today are something for 400 to 600,000. So this was about building a house today. But 650,000 US dollars at the time would be worth approximately 10 millions or tens of millions today. So just to give you an idea on inflation. And like we said, this was built with local granite. Now what I want to do is I'll turn around so we can get the view. This is the view that most people love about Minneapolis, the skyline. And we're just starting, so you can see the view. Once I get to the opposite side, I'll turn around to give you another perspective once we make it across the bridge. So now you would think the bridge would be a straight line, and I always thought about that. Like, if you're trying to connect one part of the river to another part, why not just do a straight line across the bridge? Nope, it's not that way. The bridge actually curves. it curves. I don't have a good reason on why that is, but it does curve. And some of the my understanding of it is the reason for this curvature for trains is when the trains are coming in, they might be coming at high speed, and the depot is not too far from it. So let me turn back again. The depot is not too far from it, so they wanted the trains to be forced to slow down with this curve, because this was essentially just for trains. This wasn't for cars or anything. So this curvature was very intentional. So you can see the curve in front of me, force those trains to slow down before they get into Minneapolis, into the depot. So if you ever wonder why it's not a straight line, because to me it would be cheaper and easier just make a straight line across, but that wasn't the case. So, and then there are some cofferdams over there to that were used to make this work. Now, if you go back in the day, St. Louis in Missouri was another big Midwestern city. That was essentially the gateway to the West. St. Louis, that's what it was considered. But Minneapolis, just given the powerhouse of flour and meal and all of this, quickly overtook St. Louis from that, because Minneapolis had flour to feed the city, to feed the country, to feed the world, essentially, like we discussed. St. Louis did not have that, so the St. Louis was quickly overtaken by Minneapolis. And even Chicago competed at one point to be the flour capital of the world, or even Buffalo, New York, and some of those cities, they tried, but Minneapolis just had a lot of things going for it. Let's turn around at some point here so I can show you guys two things. Number one, I want to show the view. This is Minneapolis by night. And then number two, I'm gonna show you guys the waterfall. So people say, but where is the waterfall? How can you say St. Anthony Falls? That is it. That is St. Anthony Falls over there, in blanketed by snow and very much alive. And to my right, that is Minneapolis. Beautiful walk. The cold, the breeze, the colors. There's nothing like this. Just amazing. And then I want to show you guys. So this is to my left right now. So that's the waterfall that has been engineered to stop the erosion going back. Now to my left, to my right, that's the Mill City Museum. I showed you guys. And the Mill City Museum was officially opened up in 2003. And this was built right in the ruins. So if you look at the Mill City Museum, let me show you one more time. It's built right at the center, right there. That's the ruins of the mill that exploded a while back, and that museum was built right in there. So a lot of history here. And then I also showed you guys the flower towers that are right adjacent to it. Guthrie Theater is another big piece. Now, Guthrie Theater, like I said, I'll do a tour of that at some point. That was designed by a French architect, Jean Nouvel. Jean Nouvel is his name. Beautiful theater, especially in the wintertime, Christmas periods. There's so many shows going on there. And there's a bridge. I mentioned that bridge. It's about 178 feet. It just comes off. It seems like a bridge to nowhere. And maybe those plans at some point to connect it across, I have no idea. But beautiful architecture that symbolizes the shift of Minneapolis from an industrial economy to a creative art thriving economy. So art is a big piece here of Minneapolis. The art scene here is pretty good. Now the name Minneapolis itself, Minneapolis, or Minneapolis. I'm just having fun with this. It comes from the word mini, which means water, and then obviously polis from the Greek, which means city. So water, city of water. Obviously, We have Lake Superior touching the northeastern half of Minneapolis, the Panhandle up there. We have the big one, which is a staple, the Mississippi River, born here in Minneapolis, headwaters here in born here in Minnesota, headwaters here in Minnesota, and makes sense that the name Minneapolis. So mini, M-N-I, in Dakota language, with police, Minneapolis, that's where the name comes from. And like I said, today, that obviously on the news, people talk about Somalians, and a lot of immigrants are here, which has a rich immigrant culture going on here. And Minneapolis has been a place of immigrants and culture. So the first immigrant labels that were here were the Swedish, the Norwegians, lots and lots of Germans are here in Minnesota. They did a lot of work, and it's Minneapolis becoming more diverse, and lots of immigrants, including myself. I'm calling Minneapolis and Minnesota home these days. And one thing too that people always love about Minneapolis is the skywalk. I've done some videos about the skywalk here in Minneapolis. The skywalk here is amazing. It's amazing. Now, did you know that in the 1970s, this bridge was almost demolished? And thanks to the activists and the folks who fought to keep it, we then have this staple here in Minnesota. Because, yeah, they were going to demolish this. I'm not sure what was going on at the time, but apparently they were going to do that. There is a good if you go up, not just in Minneapolis here, if you keep going up north, there is a good national park in the Boundary Waters. And the Boundary Waters doesn't directly feed into the Mississippi headwaters, but you're kind of getting close to that region of the boundary of the headwaters, from there to the Boundary Waters, which has a national park for those of you who like nature. And you get to visit Minnesota. If you make it up to the Boundary Waters, you can check that off your list. So we're coming here very close to the end of this bridge we saw from below. Again, on my right, you can see the I-35W bridge. Oh, one thing I want to show you guys is the Viking Stadium. So back there, that's where the Vikings play, built almost like a ship. So that's the Vikings School Stadium, the city of Minneapolis. That's the city of Minneapolis I can show. Really, really beautiful back. Really beautiful. And then we're gonna keep going. So we're getting close. Now, I think it's getting cold for me, but if you had time going down, you can see the Mississippi River. This is a tribute, like kind of a diversion of it. You have all the islands, Nicollet Island over there. So lots of islands here. And there is a good park there. In the summertime, you can walk across that. I won't make it there today, but just to show you guys how beautiful this is. So now we'll get into the east side of the city. We came from the west side, and we're making it to the east side. And the east side would be, in theory, St. Anthony Falls, or St. Anthony, which is still part of Minneapolis, because like I said, Minneapolis annexed the St. Anthony Falls back in the day. So very beautiful. A good hike. You get a different view when you do these hikes in the winter time. A different vibe, a different ambience compared to the summer times. And I enjoy both. Honestly enjoy both. You just have to dress for the weather. Dress warm. I think today's what's the temperature? Probably 1 degree, 4 degrees. That's how cold it is. All right, and there's a good park over here. And now this is St. Anthony. Father Hennepin Bluff Park. It's a beautiful park. I think there are events here in the summertime, concerts and such. A good view of the river. And this is the East Bank neighborhood. So just to see what we did on this riverfront map. Where are we? So we started here, made it across, and we're right here. Ordinarily, I would continue my way and do the loop onto oh, actually this is Hennepin Island. I think I lied. That wasn't Nicollet Island, that was Hennepin Island, and then Nicollet Island. And then there used to be another island all the way up here called the Boom Island, and it's no longer, or is it way up? I'm not sure. But Nicollet Island is right here on the Hennepin Avenue Bridge, and then Hennepin Island is here. I think it's about 5K to make it all around, I believe so. But today I am not doing that. It's a little bit too cold. But hopefully this was a good walking. Thank you for coming along with me for this walk. This is Minneapolis. And last take of this skyline view. Thanks for watching.